Are you a woman who's struggling to find your voice and speak up? Are you struggling to find your place at the table? Well, stay tuned because tonight on Boss Up Goddess, I have a guest, Reanette Filmer, who specializes in coaching and training women to find our voices, find the courage to speak up, and take our rightful place at the table. Welcome, Reanette.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me tonight.
So excited to talk with you. You bring to the table 30 years of experience in human resources and coaching and working with people in corporate settings. You've seen all the different angles of women being silenced or muted or afraid to speak up and take our position at the table. So, can you talk about what drives you to coach and train and speak on this topic?
Absolutely. So, what's kind of driven me to teach on this topic is one, all of my HR experience. So, I've seen through all of my leadership roles that I've had in human resources, I've seen leadership that is good and I've seen leadership that is bad. And then I've also been a part of what they call that good old boys network for many of my positions. And they've been public sector, private sector. I would say that in the rural areas, which is typically where I've worked, the rural areas are different than some of uh, your more metropolitan areas. Most of them are a little more up to date, up to speed, but we still have this glass ceiling as women, and we also have this good old boys network out there as far as boards, public sector, elected officials. And I got very encouraged about making sure that my voice was heard when I had other women telling me that I was speaking up at the table when they were afraid to speak up at the table.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so it really made me realize that I had this unknown respect from other people that I was able to speak up and say what I thought or constructively give feedback in a table with, 20 men and maybe one or two women.
Mm-hmm.
And I and so I've had a lot of opportunity to work through that. I need to have a voice for myself and also encouraging other women on how to get there and how to be a voice at the table without being assertive, without being aggressive, or
Mm-hmm.
without being aggressive, without being passive. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Renette, can you tell first, before we dive into the tips you're going to offer for women to speak up and find our place at the table, can you talk about some of the things that happen that keep women scared or the dynamics that occur that make it look like our voices are not welcome?
Yeah, so I would say I can give an example of my own. I've had situations in which I've been at the table with several men. One, actually, I have two situations I can share with you quickly. Is one, I was a council member as a vice mayor for a city for some time, and there were times that I would meet with some of the other council members that were men, and they would be sharing their ideas, things that we need to move forward on, initiatives that we need to put forward, and I would have my opinion on those initiatives. And they kind of look at me like I'm a pretty face and they move on with their conversation. And so my voice wasn't being heard. And then the second the other time that I noticed this was I used to, as a human resource professional in the public sector, I was a negotiator. I was a human resource director, but I did negotiations at the table for the unions. And I remember sitting one time in a board closed session with all men. So there was 8 men in there. And I had one man attack me during the meeting, and all the men just sat there and did absolutely nothing. And so what I did was sat back, looked around, and asked if anybody else had the same opinion. And all of them just sat there stunned that I was standing up for myself. And I let my chief administrative officer know after that meeting, if it ever happened again, that I'd be holding him responsible for the harassment because he didn't stop it from happening, being my manager, being my supervisor. But knowing that I was quick enough on my toes in a situation like that was rewarding. But I want other women to understand that they don't have to take that. And I think
Mm.
I see a lot of women that do take that in those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of situations instead
Uh-huh.
of, fighting back. Not fighting back necessarily, but being assertive and asserting your voice.
So why don't we sometimes? Why do we not speak up? Why do we not stand up for ourselves?
And that's a really good question that I think most of the women that I coach regarding this is one, they don't know how. Two, maybe they're in a role in which they don't understand what their role is and how to communicate with those individuals. Maybe it's been a history of abuse by men. Maybe it's been that they think that they don't have the power to do so, or they could possibly lose their job. And so, women do get silenced a lot in those situations. And I think that they think that that's just the way that it's supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
instead of moving forward and being more assertive.
Wow. 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 So, can you tell us some things that you teach women or coach them on about how to find their voice, how to speak up? A
Yes,
lot of women are afraid of being called the B word as well.
yes.
So, how do you dance around all these dynamics?
And this is where things get tricky, right? So there's a few things. So a few pointers I can give. And the one thing I talk about the most is assertiveness. And
Mhm.
there's a big difference between being aggressive and being assertive and being passive. And I remember when I was in my 20s and I learned about being assertive, and I went to a meeting, and one of the guys in the meeting said, "Wow, Reanette, you're sure being aggressive." Because I thought, I'm going to start being more assertive. "And you're sure being aggressive." And I said, "I'm not being aggressive." I said, "I'm being assertive." And there's a big difference between aggressive and assertive.
Uh-huh.
Aggressive is, you are going to do this the way that I say you're going to do it. Assertive
Uh-huh.
is, you know what, can we discuss some different ways that we can possibly do this? Here are some of my ideas. And passive,
Mm.
obviously, would be, whatever you guys want to do is, I'd be happy to do it. Right. So we have three different angles of how to
Mhm.
communicate that. And
Mhm.
so it's really important that women understand how to be assertive, and that there's a big difference between being assertive and aggressive. And when I used to teach a communications class, one of the things that I shared was, you're going to go back, and if you've been passive and you start being assertive, people are going to think that you are being aggressive because they've never seen you behave like this. And
Right.
then they're going to
Right.
say, "Wow, that training class really sent you over the top. And now you're just being the big B word." Right. And so, one of the things that I've also been in situations where I've had to say, not only that situation in which I was kind of joking that, no, I'm being assertive, not aggressive, is I've had to say, you guys see me as being this aggressive person, but actually I'm being assertive, as we all sit back there, we all sit and don't do anything about this situation.
Mhm.
And I am trying to assert that we need to, discuss the situation and move forward. I'm not being aggressive and saying this is what we have to do.
Mhm.
I was in a culture in my, the last position that I held as a chief administrative officer. And we had this culture of people searching for the right answer. And
Mhm.
I was the only female executive ever for that company. And so I was in those executive meetings and I kept saying, we can't allow people to just keep searching for answers like this. And I remember we were on a call one time, or something happened, and we got off the call and I said, "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You guys just allowed it to happen. They're searching for an answer, and we're having this conversation. And you told me this person came to you, and you told me this person came to you." And they just all, looked at me. And so, it's forcing them to come up with solutions rather than being aggressive and telling them what the solution is. I could tell them what the solution is, right? But if we tell them we're being aggressive, and that doesn't build relationships, we have to build our character. We have to know that we're coming to the table with the answers,
Uh-huh.
and we do have to try harder,
Mm.
and in that assertive arena,
Mhm.
to get our point across. But we don't need to be aggressive. We don't need to attack. We need to hold people accountable, and
Mhm.
that helps with the assertiveness as well. So the more we can hold people accountable. Another thing that is understanding that your voice does matter, and your voice matters with what you're telling yourself as well. And as
Oh.
women, sometimes we have that negative self-sabotaging talk, right? That it that we have to outperform. So we need to outperform our negative self-talk,
Mhm.
and we need to be better than we think we are,
Mhm.
as individuals. I remember a woman, my term as an elected official was up, and I had another woman that was running for my seat, and I was helping her through the election. And I remember showing up one night to an election party, or an election event where they were raising money, and her campaign manager came to me and said, "Can you please go and talk to Casey, she really needs some encouragement. So I went and talked to her, and she was so upset because here she was trying to raise money for her campaign, and she had other people that were raising twice as much money as she was, and she was doing the same thing. Well, the people that she was talking about were men, and I said, as women, we have to try 3 times as hard to get the same result as a man. And
Wow.
sometimes we have to try harder in certain situations to be
Mm-hmm.
more assertive, where men don't have to pick up the phone. They just word of mouth spreads and people do it. But I remember, picking up the phone during those times and having to be super assertive and call people back and call people back because it wasn't a man on the other end of the line. So
Mm.
I was a woman, I was a new voice. There were so many things that were new to it. So it's just about being assertive, making sure that you hear your voice and that inner voice of you can do it. So don't self-sabotage yourself to say, well, they're not going to listen to me because I'm a woman. We need to make sure that everybody understands that all genders are important. And one of the things I will say to that as well is that I have a saying of men need to stand down and women need to stand up.
Oh,
And
nice.
if we could do that, we would come to a more even keel in the workplace and everybody would understand. Where men need to just understand that if a woman is speaking her voice, she's not being the B word, she's not being aggressive, she's being assertive.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference. The other thing that is understanding other people's individual communication styles. So, as a woman, we really have to make sure that we are looking at our soul and looking at who we are as individuals and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that we understand who we are, how we're communicating,
Mm-hmm.
how it's coming across to people. So, there was a time in my life when I was very young, and I had a lot of people come to me and say, "You always look like you're mad." And I got so tired of people always saying, "Oh, you always look like you're mad," that I just started raising my eyebrows a little bit and
Uh-huh.
smile, like kind of having a half smile on
Right.
my face.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it changed everything. Right. And so
Wow.
we have to know who we are inside. And at that point in my life, I was in my 20s. I didn't know exactly, we're still discovering ourselves in our 20s.
Right.
So we don't know. But, through life and through those self discoveries, I learned more who I am. And if we aren't taking that time to be reflective of our own soul and who we
Mm-hmm.
are as individuals
Mm-hmm.
and as women and how we're coming across,
Mm-hmm.
then we are not adding value to other people's lives. And
Mm-hmm.
so we really need to learn to communicate with different people differently, as well as understanding uh, how, how we are communicating to people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, an example of that is I hear a lot of people say, well, as an HR consultant, when I was doing HR specifically, I would have companies say, well, that department, they're all women in that department. That's why they just don't get along. That's why nothing is happening. And I said, you know what? That is not true. I have led departments of 12, up to 12, 15 women, and we're all women. We eat lunch together every single day. And I think it's because as women, we really need to make sure that we're making the effort to understand people, see their value, know what their values are, communicate with them, encourage them, and that encourages us. So if we are doing well for others, then it's going to do well for us
Oh,
individually.
nice.
So
Yes.
those are a lot of the things that I teach women as we are going through coaching processes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have coached several women that are on boards that it's just understanding the board itself and understanding the actual process of the board and what their role is on the board,
Mm.
how to engage. And they've had some difficult men that they've worked with. And I've had several of them say that had they have had the skill now, they would have been able
Oh,
to stand up to those bullies, right? So we have
wow.
more men are bullies in the workplace typically than women, and
Mm-hmm.
more men are bullies towards women uh, than women are bullies towards men. So we just have to really make sure that we understand the dynamics of the workplace, what our role is, when to insert, and when it matters. When it matters,
Wow.
what you say when it matters is really
Mm-hmm.
important.
Mm-hmm. So Do you ever realize or come across the idea that some women aren't even aware? Like when I hear women apologizing, all the oh sorry,
Oh,
or
gosh, yeah.
oh maybe this is a dumb question, but or you know what I mean? Where
Yes.
there's like it's a confidence issue, and that's fear of speaking up, fear of being heard, fear of being criticized.
Yes.
So how do you awaken women to the fact that this is even happening? Because it's like a socialization. And if you never wake up to what's going on, you'll never seek a coach like yourself to fix it.
Absolutely. So it goes back to that self-reflection. If we have to spend time self-reflecting, there's a book called 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell that
Mm.
I'm actually doing a mastermind class on right now. And it has a whole chapter of the law of reflection. And
Oh.
the law of reflection, if we don't sit and reflect and spend time by ourselves, understanding how we operate, how we communicate, how we see things, how we feel. So
Mm.
if we are feeling like I have to apologize because I'm asking you, I'm sorry, I have a question. That
Right.
was always, as an executive,
Oh.
it was always my biggest pet peeve when people walk in my office. Like, I'm sorry, I know you're really busy, but I have a question. I'm here for you. Like, that is my job. My job is to be busy. My job is to be here for you to ask questions. So the best thing that I can always do is just say, you know what, don't ever apologize. And this is what I'm here for. This is my job, to come in and ask questions. But that self-reflection is so important, because if we're not self-reflecting, then as we go through our day, we're not looking at what we're saying and what we're doing. We're just going through the motion. So then we've created a habit. We've created that negative self-image that I have to apologize before I ask a question. It's, Rachel Hollis says, girls, stop apologizing, in her book,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
and so, there's so many things that I've taught people. One, if you're late to a meeting, but you're typically never late to a meeting, the worst thing that you can do is walk in and start apologizing up and down that you're late to a meeting. Is, you know what, I'm here. I had a meeting that I was delayed. Let's get going. Let's get moving. And as women, we need to. A man won't walk in and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm late.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I had this meeting and I apologize from the bottom of my heart." Men won't do that, but women will. Women will do that every time. They'll walk in. "I'm so sorry." I got myself in a bind one time because when I was on the executive team for this last job that I worked at, was I started playing the female role. And I noticed this after I was self-reflecting, right? So I started playing this female role of, everybody gets a copy of the agenda because Reanette brings it, and anybody want a water? And if the copies weren't made, Reanette was making the copies. And one day I just decided, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And so they all came to the meeting and no one had a copy of the agenda. And they said, "Can you make a copy?" And I'm like, "No, the copy machine's out in the hallway." You know, so as women, sometimes we do that because we feel that it's our role, right? And
Yes,
then we
yes.
get mad about it, and
Uh-huh.
then we can get aggressive about it. So we have to be careful and
Uh-huh.
self-reflect on what we're doing. I
Yes,
think that's where
yes.
we get in the bind of apologizing, or feeling like we're always going to make a mistake, or that we ask a question and we apologize for asking a question,
Right.
because we're not self-reflecting, and we're also putting ourselves in that typical woman role of
Right.
thinking that we're not supposed to have confidence, and that if we
Right.
do have confidence, we're seen as this crazy, uh, aggressive, bitchy woman,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been called the B word just because I have an opinion, I'm knowledgeable,
Mm.
and am not going to stand up, or I'm going to stand up to what my opinion might be about something in an
Mhm.
appropriate way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
women just, it all goes back to the self-reflection. And I think that the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth is a great book for a man or a woman,
Mhm.
understanding the role that they play as an individual, not necessarily as a leader, but things to check on as an individual and
Mhm.
really do some inner soul searching.
Wow, Renette. So, to what degree are men serving as allies in this quest for women to speak up and take our place at the table?
I think that men just have been naturally conditioned, kind of like women have. So just as much as maybe women have allowed it to happen, men just make it happen because they don't see that they're doing anything wrong. They're just playing their male role.
Mm.
And so, I think that there's a lot of men that are kind of starting to change the way that
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking and pulling. I had a great CEO at my last job. He was great at asking my opinion, valuing my opinion. And that's really rare. And he was a baby boomer. And that's
Mm.
rare to find amongst baby boomers as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
male baby boomers specifically. So I think that men are starting to come around to it and getting more they're starting to be more understanding. We're seeing more women CEOs in, some of the big Fortune 500 companies, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that men really need to just start kind of understanding the differences in communication between men and women. I'm not
Mm.
going to communicate as a man. I never am. I'm not a male. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Men aren't going to communicate as women. They're not women. And
Mm-hmm.
that we need all genders in the workplace because we all bring a different value into the workplace. That is important. And if we can find the balance between the two, and men, again, can stand down and allow a woman to stand up, then we start to grow together and become more allies than enemies.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. That is powerful. That's powerful. I'm glad you're saying that things are changing, and we obviously have the historic occurrence of our new female vice president,
Vice
Kamala
president. Yeah.
Harris, which
Yeah.
is super powerful, and more women running for office, getting elected, playing
Mhm.
leadership roles in companies. The Walgreens now has a female CEO, which is amazing. Um, and
And
so
to
things,
that point of being an elected official as a woman, I have to say that's probably, I mean, it's no small feat for a woman because women attack women too. And I think that if, as women, we could hold each other up a lot more than
mhm,
attack each other.
mhm.
And for some reason, women seem to be much more judgmental than men of men. Like men will, they go and they fight and they go to a bar and fight it out, and then they're friends afterwards. Where women are like, she's pretty, I don't like her, or she's smart, I don't like her. And so I always tell women, especially when I was doing women in communication, is if we could have each other's back. So men will promote a man before they will promote a woman. So if
Mm,
you have, say you have an interview committee of 5 men and there's one woman on the interview committee, or maybe there's two, and you interview uh, 5 people and one of them is a woman and she's really the best qualified, they will hire a man before they will hire a woman. I
mhm.
don't think it's always gender specific. I think it's just that they relate better to the man. But if you, and typically the women on the committee will give into them hiring the man, because they're one voice. But also women, there's studies out there that show that women will hire men before they'll hire women as well.
What?
And they'll do it periodically when they have a lot of men on their interview panel. And so, and I can't remember what the statistics are. I had it when I was doing this training. But if women would support promoting more women and also supporting the efforts of women. And so if I come into an organization and I'm making a lot of changes, and as women, everybody has a difficult time with change. It doesn't matter what gender you're in, right? So they have a more difficult time with change. And so you go in and you're making changes and you're the one person that's making changes. Um, if other women would just jump up and support because you're a woman making changes and you're making an effort and
Mhm.
really find out what's going on and support those changes, I think that we would come a long ways a lot faster. And I don't see that happen a lot. Women don't, it doesn't matter if they're managers or um, supervisors or their line staff. If you're a woman, no matter where you are in the organization, you've got to back up your women, you know,
Yes.
your women
Hello.
managers, executives. We've got to hold each other up in the workforce to get us where we need to be. And I think that if more women backed more women, we would be in a different place.
Wow.
I
This
would
is,
love to see that happen.
well, you've been in the trenches in the corporate workplace to see this yourself, but then there's messages like all the outpouring of love and cheering and support for Kamala Harris. And when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the
Yeah.
Supreme Court justice, died, there was such a huge, I mean, she is like a movement unto herself with all
Yes.
these women of all ages who just there was this outpouring. So it seems like there are women loving women
Yeah.
in power, but you're saying behind the scenes, there's some dynamics that need to be improved.
Well, and I think that, we all come from different cultures and backgrounds. We have different political beliefs. We have different religions, all these things. And, when you're a woman such as Kamala, you have to be a very, as a vice president, you have to be very thick skinned. And, women that want to climb in the executive ranks, we have to be thick skinned. But also, excuse me, there's a lot of women that probably don't like Kamala just because she's a woman. But that's where I feel like we need to step up and say, you know what? She worked really hard to get in that seat. She's done a lot of
Yes.
work. She doesn't matter what her culture and her background is. Doesn't matter if you even believe her political beliefs. She's worked a long ways to get into that position, and we need to back her. She's a woman in a first-time role as a vice president of the United States. Having a woman, we have to back and support the woman aspect of it, even if we don't want to come together as trying to bring political parties together, but trying to just support women in that effort, whether you
Mm-hmm.
believe in her politics or not.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I think that's what I'm saying too, is that we may not believe in what they're doing, but let's make an effort as a woman to
Yes.
support each other. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Reanette. I love what you do. Do you work one-on-one with people or do you have a program or both?
So I work one-on-one, and then I've just started doing some mastermind classes. And
Uh-huh.
so I will be doing a couple of masterminds here coming up, one on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And then the other one that I'm putting together right now is it's about values, because I really strongly believe that if we understand our individual core values, which a lot of people that I come across and I do coaching with, that's one of the first things I ask you: what are your top 3 values and what's the definition of your values? And a lot
Oh.
of people don't know. They can say,
Oh.
oh, my value is honesty, relationships, and loyalty, and humor. Those are mine. And but they can't define them or even tell me why they've selected those values. And so working on values.
Mm.
So doing a values workbook and helping people discover what their values are and how they can take those values and add value to life, to other people's life and their own life, as well as the decisions that they make will be surrounded and will incorporate those values that they have in their life. So if I am going to have values of honesty, relationships, and humor, I want to make sure that if I were to go and find a job, which I'm an entrepreneur and I've come to that conclusion, I'm 100% entrepreneur. If I were to go out and look for another position somewhere, I'm going to make sure that I find that they value relationships, they value loyalty or honesty, and that they like to have fun at work.
Oh, I
Those are the
love
things that
that.
I would look at, right?
Wow.
I pick a friend and I want to make sure they're going to make me laugh. I want to make sure
Yes.
I can have deep, good conversations with them. And I want to make sure that they're going to be honest with me and
Mm.
be loyal to me. So those are the things that are important. But every decision that I make, it should align with those values.
I love that. I love how you help people see things so clearly and get that clarity.
My goal is to add value to people's life. I want to add
Oh,
value to their life and through, some of my life experiences, but helping them find it with their life experiences.
oh, I love
And
it.
women and HR people are my who I'd love to work with.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love talking with you. I've learned so much today.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. And I love your background.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
I did just recently change so I got to change it. So I'm going to do, it's create, launch, transform. So
Oh,
I had
okay.
create, launch, repeat,
Uh-huh.
but we changed repeat to transform because I want it to be
Ooh.
transformative for people.
Oh my goodness. I just love it. It's beautiful
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
it's just really inspiring and crisp.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been great talking to you. I love
Oh,
talking to you anyway, but
thanks, Renette. Thank you. I always learn so much every time we talk, and you're just an absolute delight. I love your mission. So thank you for sharing all these steps that we can all follow. I certainly will be applying them because we've all been in that position and we have to understand ourselves. I love your concept of reflection.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. So,
Continuous
right.
growth, right? If we reflect, then we're continually growing and what we have to do better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Journaling and meditation are an excellent way to do
Yes.
that reflection. It
And
gives
you
you
do
sort of,
meditation, so
I
with
do.
people on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Yeah.
It helps you get still and silent and go within because we live in such a noisy world
Yes.
that's telling us how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to live. But what's inside? What's driving us?
Yes.
What's our authentic voice telling us we want to do?
Yeah.
So we have to figure,
Absolutely.
I love how you help people figure that out.
Yes. My goal.
Yes. Speaking up, finding your voice, speaking up, and taking your place at the table
That's
with
right.
Reanette Filmer.
That's right.
I
I'll take
love
it.
that.
I'll take
Where
it.
can people find you, Reanette?
I do have a website, www.renettefilmer.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, but my website has all my links on it. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, I would, and I'm trying to get more blog posts out there now and kind of getting up and going. And, we all dealt with the last 12 months of trying to figure out where our life was leading. And so
Yes.
I think I finally figured it out.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Well, I'll put the
So,
link to your website down in the description box so people can
great.
contact you if they'd like to learn more.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Oh, you're so welcome,
All right.
Reanette.
It
Thank
was great
you.
talking to you. Have a
You
good night.
too. You
All right.
too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today on Boss Up Goddess. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I interview trailblazing women like Reanette Filmer, who teach us how to live bigger, better, and bolder when they share their wisdom with us. So remember, Boss Up Goddess, you have the power. I'll see you next time.